Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday, November 13th, 2025 edition of Douglas Now Live. I'm Robert Preston Jr. We have a couple of stories that we would like to discuss today. Two local stories and then one story that gets outside of the borders of Coffee County a little bit. First of all, and this happens from time to time, a scam has been reported in Douglas and Coffee County. And there are various types of scams that go around. There's usually something happening at any given time here. People are subject to get phone calls and solicitations for promises of money in some shape, form, or fashion. This latest scam, people receiving phone calls from folks promising $2,000 stimulus checks. And then, of course, as the phone call continues, there's some weird things that happen in there. Again, this is a scam involving fraudulent $2,000 stimulus payments. At some point during a call like this, someone is going to ask you for personal information, all or part of your Social Security number. They're also going to ask you to get a prepaid card of some kind. Go to a retailer like CVS or Dollar General or Walgreens or something like that and buy one of these prepaid cards, and then and then send that to them, and you'll get your check and what have you. All right. Here's what the Sheriff's Department says. First of all, do not provide anyone with any personal information, including all or part of your Social Security number. Do not send money or agree to pay for shipment fees or preloaded Visa cards that claim to come from the government. Do not call any phone number unless it is a verified official line for the Internal Revenue Service or the Department of Revenue. There are no authorized $2,000 stimulus payments at this time. If the U.S. Department of Revenue or the IRS issues a legitimate payment, they will make a public announcement through official and credible news sources. And the Sheriff's Department added this in their statement. Remember, scammers have no remorse. Your need for the money will never outweigh their desire to steal from you. Stay alert, protect your information, and help spread the word to prevent others from becoming victims of this or any other scam. Now, I believe, and I'm going out on a limb here, but I think it's a pretty sturdy limb, that the origin for this is comes from the fact that President Trump has announced that he plans to give $2,000 checks, and he's called them stimulus checks, $2,000 stimulus checks to all Americans from the money, from the fund that tariffs, from tariff funds this year. Okay, now we spent a lot of time talking about tariffs. And one of the reasons that I believe Trump is doing this, if you pay attention to the Supreme Court, last week, the Supreme Court heard arguments regarding the constitutionality of Trump's tariffs. Now, remember, Trump, and we've talked about this earlier in the year, Trump invoked his tariffs using the IEEPA, the International Economic Emergency Protection Act, or something like that. It's something like that. But it's a law that grants certain powers to the president in the wake of some type of, emergency. And there has been a court challenge to that. And the challenge basically says that IEEPA does not apply in this situation. The president cannot take that law and use it to invoke these tariffs. All right. And last week, the Supreme Court heard opening arguments about that. And it could be several months or up to a year before the Supreme Court makes a decision regarding that. From talking to people and listening to people who are familiar with this, all of the justices, both liberal and conservative alike, with liberals going more in this direction, but seem to lean on the unconstitutionality part of this. Based upon their comments, based upon their questioning last week, it seems that the Supreme Court is moving in a direction that would lend them to make a decision saying that the president does not have the authority to do this. Now, you might be asking, who has the authority to authorize tariffs? That, of course, would be Congress. Congress has the power to tax. A tariff is a tax. All right. So, and the tariffs, and it still changes. It's kind of a fluid situation, but the tariffs have raised a lot of money. All right. A lot of money. And one of the things the president has said that he would like to do is to give every adult American a $2,000 stimulus check from the tariff fund, if you will. And that's probably not the right way to put it. Now, this does not include high income earners. So it's middle class and lower class Americans are going to receive this money. And the cynics out there, me being one of those, says that the reason he's doing this is to drum up public support for the tariffs. Now, he's collecting this money and he's giving it back to American citizens. So he said he wants to do that. It has not been approved. It has not been authorized. And he hasn't said how he's going to do it. There are a lot of discussion about, will it be actual checks given to people? Will it be downloaded to cards that people get that they can use at retailers and what have you? Will it be in the form of tax credits? A lot of questions that still nobody knows. But the president has mentioned that. So if you hear something about $2,000 stimulus checks coming from tariff funds, that is something that the White House is discussing. It's not related to this scam here. All right. This scam is piggybacking, I believe, off of that. People hear $2,000 stimulus checks mentioned in the news, and then you get a phone call with someone promising you $2,000 in the form of some type of stimulus check, but they want your personal information. They want you to go get a prepaid Visa card or something like that. Anytime you hear that, it's absolutely a scam. It is absolutely a scam. I received a call from one of these folks a couple of years ago, and it was not, the stimulus check. It was a Publishers Clearinghouse scam. I got a phone call one afternoon, someone telling me that I had won $5 or $10 million or something in the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. And Publishers Clearinghouse is supposed to be legitimate, supposed to be. So when they said that, I thought, well, wait a minute, what is this? But then I got to thinking, I said, I have not entered into the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. I have not gotten any. You used to get those mailers for Publishers Clearinghouse. You used to see, I think Ed McMahon on television doing that kind of stuff. And I thought, you know what, I don't think this is true. But I kept the guy on the phone and I said, okay, so tell me more. And we got to the point where he wanted me to go get one of these prepaid cards and download like $499 or download to put $499 on that card and then send it to him, and then they would start processing my payment. And I said, look, man, I said, this is a scam. I said, don't call me again. And I hung up the phone. He called me back 3 or 4 times, and I finally answered, and I was pretty blunt with him. I said, look, I said, this is a scam. I know it's a scam. Leave me alone. Do not ever call me again, ever. And he didn't. So again, these types of things ebb and flow in our community and in other communities, but there is a scam going around. Again, don't provide anyone with any personal information. Don't send money or agree to pay for shipment fees or any type of prepaid or preloaded card. And don't call any number unless it comes from a verified source. And I can tell you this, the IRS, the Department of Revenue, folks like that are not going to contact you in this manner. So again, there is a promise, maybe kind of from the White House regarding $2,000 stimulus checks from tariff funds. It will not come. It will not come in this format. So if you get anything, a phone call that asks you for any of this stuff, no, don't pay any attention to it. Do not give them what they want, because all they're going to do is use your personal information to enrich themselves, and you will get nothing. Tomorrow, the Coffee Trojans travel to, well, actually, I think they're probably traveling today to Canton to prepare for tomorrow's first round playoff game against the Sequoia Chiefs. If you remember from last year, Coffee and Sequoia played each other in the quarterfinals of the state playoffs. Coffee won 70-48, or 72, I'm sorry, 72-48. That was a game in which senior running back Tyrese Woogett rushed for 605 yards and 8 touchdowns and set the single game state rushing record. That record has since been eclipsed this year. Ty Cummings out of West Lawrence rushed for 615 yards in a game earlier this year, also scored 8 touchdowns. But we are the number 4 seed. And the following information, I want to give credit where this information came from. It came from the Georgia High School Football Daily. So this is part of their playoff game or playoff matchup preview that they do for all playoff games in all classifications. We're 4-6 on the season. Sequoia is 9-1. We're the number 4 seed from Region 2. Sequoia is the number 1 seed from Region 6. We are unranked. Sequoia is ranked number 9. Again, last meeting we won 72-48 in the quarterfinals last year. This is our 12th straight playoff appearance. We have won our first round game in each of the past 3 seasons. I think if you go back 4 years ago, we lost maybe to Creekside, I think, maybe in the first round. We are 13-7 all time in the first round of the playoffs. This is Sequoia's 4th straight playoff appearance. They've won its first round game each of the past 2 seasons. They are 9-8 overall in the first round of the playoffs, or the round of 32. Our average score this year is 20-24 against the 7th hardest schedule in Class 5A. Sequoia's average score is 43-13 against the 23rd hardest schedule in 5A. Now, the Georgia High School Football Daily uses a computer projection called the Maxwell rankings. They do this for regular season matchups and for playoff matchups. According to the Maxwell ratings projection, Sequoia is favored by 20 points. Now, if you follow this every day, and a lot of you out there get the Georgia High School Football Daily, and you follow these lines and these projections and what have you, they are pretty accurate, okay? But every once in a while, they're off, and they can be off pretty badly. And one of those examples that really stands out to me is going back 2 years ago, Camden County during their run through the playoffs. They were projected to lose from the first round all the way to when they eventually lost. And I don't remember if they went to the quarterfinals or to the semifinals, but they made a pretty deep run in the highest classification back in 2023. They were favored. They were picked to lose each game that they played, and they won 2 or 3 by pretty significant margins. So the Maxwell rankings, there's a trend if you follow them. They're pretty close. They've been pretty close this year with us just in our regular season games. But every once in a while, there's a ratings buster, and I hope that tomorrow night will be it. All right, so the Maxwell ratings have us, 20-point underdogs, but that doesn't always hold up. And Coffee has done some things different late in the season. We're a little bit of a different team than we were early in the year. We've made some personnel changes. Some of it we've had to because of injuries. Others we've rotated some folks in and out and have a little bit of a different lineup than we had early in the year. And some kids who were maybe off the radar have really stepped up and played well late in the season. So I hope that we found the right combination that we can go up to Sequoia and upset a number 1 seed and then move on to the second round of playoffs. But remember, there's no school tomorrow. This is for the public school system. Now, the private schools and the colleges, of course, still have their regular scheduled classes, but the Coffee County school system will not have school tomorrow. Teachers have to go half a day. For professional learning, but students will not be in school tomorrow. So the last day of the school week is this week. And then we're going to get into the holidays. And of course, we'll see what happens next week. If we do win, we will be more than likely be on the road again next week, traveling somewhere far off. So we will see what happens then. Will we have school or not? So, again, then we're getting into the Thanksgiving week and all of that. So we'll see what happens, but we got to win tomorrow night first. but that's what's happening in the world of sports. The Trojans, the last local football team, still in the postseason. CCA eliminated a couple of weeks ago. The government shutdown. I'm glad I saved these pictures. If you look to my desk to my right, there are a lot of pictures and notes on the floor. And I saved these pictures because I don't know when I might need them again. Our government shutdown photo here, we have used several times lately. But as of last night, the government shutdown ended after 43 days. It is the longest shutdown in history. So the good news is the shutdown is over. The bad news is, if there is bad news, that it is temporary. The agreement reached last night, the bill that the president signed after the House approved it, funds the government through January the 30th. So remember, there are 31 days in January, so it falls 1 day short of funding the government the rest of November, all of December, and almost all of January. So there's still more work to be done. So this is not a permanent or long-term solution. It is a temporary solution that does get us through the holiday travel season. And I cannot overstate the importance of that. Because if you've flown lately or know people who have flown, air traffic and air travel have been disrupted during the shutdown due to reduced numbers of air traffic controllers and federal airport employees. So we're funding the government and gets us through the holiday travel season and does get all of our airports fully staffed and get our flights the way that they ought to. And then we'll see what happens after that. Now, it is not a perfect solution. And let me say this. And I like it when our government agencies is not the right words, departments, divisions, what branches compromise. And what you see here is the result of compromise. And this is the way it used to be when we had statesmen and diplomats and politicians with the will and the betterment of the people first and foremost. All right? People crossed the aisle. They worked together. They gave a little bit over here. They took a little bit over there. They were willing to work with each other to get something done. And one of the reasons the government stayed shut down for 43 days is because neither side was willing to step across the aisle and reach some type of agreement. That finally happened when 8 Democrats came over and said, look, we need to end this government shutdown. Let's see what we can do. So it's not a perfect agreement by any means. And there's still some work to be done, and there's still some debate to be done. But you got the foundation laid and some progress made, and we're moving forward. And if you followed this, there have been some very harsh words from Democrats toward their fellow Democrats for crossing over. We're in a time period now where we don't like compromise, where the machine of government works differently than it used to. There was a time when the president would have called in leaders on both sides of the aisle from both parties and said, look, the government is shut down, go fix it. You've got to fix this. This is Congress's issue, go fix it. And they would have worked together. You didn't really see that this time. And finally, beginning late last month, a few Democrats started to step over a little bit, and they have been absolutely destroyed by some media outlets because of that. All right? And what's the big deal? Why have they been talked about so badly? Well, one of the big sticking points with the government shutdown was the extension of healthcare subsidies, particularly extending Enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies. All right? Democrats want those subsidies extended. Republicans do not. All right? There is not an extension of the subsidies in this agreement, which is why which is why the Democrats are upset. This is a paragraph from the Wall Street Journal. It says the law does not include an extension to health care subsidies, but as part of the deal to get some Senate Democrats on board, GOP leaders in the Senate promised to vote on Democrats' proposal for extending enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies by mid-December. The House has not made a similar pledge. Senate Republicans also expect to get a parallel vote on their own approach to the expiring health care subsidies. So, again, kind of a throwback to the way things used to be. Look, we're not going to give this to you right now, but let's talk about it. Let's see what we can come up with, and hopefully there can be some type of compromise moving forward, because this is going to remain a sticking point until there is some resolution. All right? So the healthcare subsidies, not a part of this, but promise to continue discussing it. There's something else in here. Now, again, there's several parts of this there, and we're not going to cover all these, but I found this quite interesting. There are new hemp provisions in the law that ends the shutdown. And again, this is from the Wall Street Journal. The law rewrites the federal definition of hemp, effectively banning the sale of hemp-derived gummies, drinks, vapes, and edibles 1 year from now. These products, which can produce a mild high, some of you know very well what we're talking about here, became legal through a loophole in the 2018 Farm Bill. Under the new language, hemp would be defined to exclude products with more than 0.4 milligrams of THC per container or any synthetically produced cannabinoids, such as Delta-8 THC. The changes deal a major blow to the fast-growing and largely unregulated hemp industry, which has flourished in convenience stores and online. You want to know why vape shops pop up on every corner? You want to know why convenience stores have large selections of these types of products? It's that Delta-8 THC. It's here in Coffee County. It's all over the place. So that could change within 1 year. We'll see what happens when the hemp lobbyists get a hold of this. There may be something that changes moving forward, but 1 year from now, this stuff will be there will be changes to how it is distributed and sold and bought. So yeah, if you like the Delta-8 THC, changes are coming. You've got a year. You might want to stock up on that. But that's the government shutdown. A very, very, very brief overview. The government shutdown will end. Everybody will go back to work, but it's only for a few weeks. This debate will continue into January and beyond, and it is quite possible that we could have another shutdown in the very near future. I will say this again. I have been beating this drum for a long time, and I will continue to beat it. All right. If I'm the lone voice crying in the wilderness, all right, government works better when there is discussion, when there is dialogue, when there is compromise. This is a little bit of that. The government shutdown ended when people crossed the aisle and began talking and reached an agreement. That's the way it works. That's the way it should continue to work. And it should start at the top. The president should encourage it. And if you're dealing with state legislatures, the governor should encourage it. And leadership in both parties should be willing to do that, to sit down and say, all right, let's work through this and see what we can get out of it. And it's starting to happen here a little bit. I hope that at some point we would realize the importance of that and maybe move back in that direction. But Congress has been a major problem in the quagmire and the logjam that we see with our government. Congress has the power and the authority to keep these kinds of things from happening. They're not doing it. We, as voters, have allowed them to do that, and it's caused problems. So I'm very, very upset with Congress. They have abdicated their power, and it's almost as though they have given that power to the executive branch, which cannot be done. You can't do that. And that's going to come up, and it has to some degree, in the tariff debate at the Supreme Court. Congress cannot give its authority to tax to the executive branch and then the president take over those duties. That can't be done. Congress has the power to tax. So again, it's going to, there are a lot of interesting things that are going to come out of this, but in an overview, you can't do that. All right. But Congress has at least unofficially done that, and it's causing a lot of problems. So for at least the next few weeks and through the holiday travel season, the government shutdown has ended. Let's take a look, as always, at our tower cam. Our sub-freezing temperatures did not last, thank goodness. It was a little chilly this morning, and it's going to be chilly through the rest of the week, but it's going to warm up very nicely in the afternoons, mid-60s, low 70s. Nice weather as we prepare to head into the weekend. Should be a good night for football tomorrow night, not just for the Trojans, but for the other teams in the area that are in the first round of the playoffs. So we hope all of our South Georgia teams do very well, but a nice looking day out there today. And I am you can see I'm in my short sleeves here. I do not even have a jacket today. So it's a far cry from what it was just a couple of days ago. Those are our top stories in Douglas and Coffee County for Thursday, November the 13th, 2025. I want to thank everyone for tuning in and for streaming. If anything breaks, we will be there through tomorrow and through the weekend. Of course, we will have coverage of the Trojans' first round game tomorrow night. So if you would like to know how that goes, please pay attention around 10:30, 11 o'clock, maybe even midnight tomorrow night, depending upon how the game goes. But we will have a story up then as well. I want to go back to the tower cam a minute ago because I can see it in the corner there. There's a bird flying around. I'm waiting until we see a deer over here in the corner, because we do have deer and turkeys and raccoons that move through our property quite a bit. But we just saw a bird fluttering around up here on the tower, so that's pretty neat. Anyway, we get some action on the tower cam. We like that. Thank you again for streaming. Everybody have a wonderful Thursday. We'll see you next time.